appreciate the work that you're trying to do with the system. My sense is that it's been historically badly managed, and a lot of these problems root back to management decisions that were made that I think were probably wrong decisions in the past. And then the bigger issue of no one being willing to tackle the capital needs when they were probably far more manageable. I suspect Metro's like every other piece of infrastructure that has certain needs at a point in time, and the longer I delay dealing with those needs, the nature of those needs change. So something I could have fixed for maybe $100 million becomes something I have to fix for $250 million. And I think it just shows the problem that comes from delaying a lot of times. It's not a savings. It just pushes the problem and makes it more expensive. I had a couple of things I wanted to say. One was, I think you guys got to do body cameras. In this day and age, I don't think this is not an if, this is you need to do it. And, you know, we have noted, and I honestly believe that you get different behavior on both sides of the camera when things are on camera. And that's important. No one should be mistreated, and no one should feel they can get away with mistreatment because it's going to be my word against somebody else's word. And we've seen how badly my word against somebody else's word plays out, because in the courts, apparently, there's only one word that counts. So I would urge you to deal with that quickly. As far as privatization or outsourcing, one thing I don't ever want to see is an outsourced contract without the number of employees attached to it, because, and I know this is true with other agencies, I can show a decline in the number of employees, and everybody says, oh, well, you've cut employees working for Metro, but instead your private contracts have perhaps the equivalent number of employees that you're paying for. Only that it doesn't show up that way, so it appears you've achieved a change in management or whatever that isn't really there. And I will say I'm highly skeptical of privatization. I mean, I could read you, I was given any number of news stories from around the country about jurisdictions that set out thinking they were going to save money and wound up not saving money. And I'll say I feel pretty strongly that there's no reason why WMATA can't manage effectively as the private sector. And if you can't, that tells me you have the wrong managers, because there's no magic to this that comes with, you know, if you're an employee in the private sector, and many managers have worked in both worlds. And so what's left to save money on, if there's no magic to the management, is it simply depressing wages to the lowest possible level. And at the same time, if you're a private company, you have to make a profit. So they both have a pressure on upward prices to you, and the cost is usually borne by workers. And I've looked at your scale of pay, and frankly, it's hard to say that your bus drivers and your train operators who get in the mid-50s are drastically overpaid people. I would suggest they could not afford to live in pretty much any jurisdiction in the DC area at $50-something thousand a year. So I'm not sure there's any magic to this, and I would like to see a greater emphasis on better management. And I do think you need to talk to the unions. I think they've got to be part of the conversation to the extent, and I'm not going to go into now, but there may well be legitimate issues about what work rules are. Those need to be made straight. I think the employees there understand that a failing system isn't going to be employing them. That, you know, if you continue to shrink hours and service, that's a bad thing. So I would hope that we work really hard to try to engage them as partners and not see them as negotiating adversaries in this process. And the last thing I'll say is on financing this, I feel pretty strongly about not going to 100% reliance on a sales tax. It's regressive, and I think, you know, here's a headline from the Washington Post: developers making billions off Metro. You know, JBG merged with Smith and Avado. They got rid of all their property or in the process of getting all their property that's beyond a half mile from Metro, and putting their investment in properties that are exclusively around Metro, because Metro generates higher values. Greater Washington advocated for some kind of local Metro assessment around the stations. Metro itself has in the past advocated for local assessments around the stations or value capture or whatever name we want to put on it. I think we ought to look at that because I think it's unfair to have the development community reap billions of dollars off of the public investment, and then when we have a problem, say, but the taxpayers, of which most, I mean, Craig would argue in the north part of the county, and people in the east county would say, you're going to tax us for this, and meanwhile, the people who benefit from the public investment, there's no tax to help pay for the public investment. So I don't think they can bear the whole thing either, but I would like to see some balance between local assessment districts on commercial property around metros and then the sales tax, if need be, to provide the additional funding. I don't question what you need, but I do question about how we go about doing it, and I think it should be equitable and not completely landed on county taxpayers.